Very rarely do you get a movie that is so dark, so depressing and bleak that it ruins your entire weekend, but The Long Walk didn't just ruin my day, it has me contemplating what movies are even supposed to be.
They say you shouldn't make friends on the long walk, but I sort of like you three. Let's be musketeers. All for one!
One for all.
Nah, and again, I need to hear it louder. All for one!
And one for all!
I'm sure I wasn't the only one who saw the trailer for The Long Walk and thought, yep, sure does look like these boys walk a lot. Oh hey, that's Luke Skywalker. But man, oh man, there is so much more to unpack here than I expected. Going in, The Long Walk seemed like another flavor of the week young adult dystopian story, one with some striking similarities to that of Suzanne Collins' Hunger Games series.
I can see it.
What can you see?
I actually leaned over to my wife while we were watching The Long Walk and whispered, "This feels a lot like The Hunger Games," only to find out the director of The Long Walk, Francis Lawrence, actually directed all of the Hunger Games movies. Well, except for the first one. Wealth inequality, political turmoil, government-sponsored death squads, The Long Walk and The Hunger Games share a lot of similarities and themes, though it's clear pretty much from the beginning that The Long Walk ain't your grandma's young adult post-apocalyptic story. We see a world torn apart by economic struggles following a major war. America is seemingly hanging on by a thread with little to no opportunity to grow or have financial security. The only opportunity people do have is participating in this event called, you guessed it, The Long Walk, where men are chosen to outlast one another in an endless trek across this depression-torn America. Usually movies like The Long Walk feel sanitized and stripped of their grittiness. The Hunger Games books weren't exactly the most visceral or explicit novels out there, but they certainly painted a more bleak and violent picture than the actual Hunger Games films themselves did. This is not the case with The Long Walk. Going in, I was curious how this film would handle its violence. Trailers weren't enough to get me excited, but the actual premise, the idea of The Long Walk itself, the idea of a group of guys having to continue walking or risk getting killed is really interesting. Props to Stephen King on that one obviously, but still, I wanted to see how this played out on the big screen. After a quick but effective moment in the car between our main character Garrity,
I'm Ray Garrity,
played by Cooper Hoffman, and his mom Judy Greer, it's off to the races, quite literally, as The Long Walk begins. Alright, here we go, they're walking now, I said out loud in the theater. How can they keep this interesting for the next 108 minutes? After being introduced to our other main character, McVreeze, played by David Johnson, we finally arrive at our first slacker. Our characters are told they get 3 warnings before getting their ticket, and this poor kid at the back has had 3 warnings. A carbine is pointed toward his head as our boys continue walking. Yeah, this is gonna be your classic cut right after the guy gets shot moments. You see this all the time in movies meant to appeal to a wider audience. You know, it helps violence feel a little bit less real and gross, and oh, The Long Walk is actually going there. This poor kid gets shot right in the face, his jaws hanging off his head. Blood goes everywhere, and as soon as his body drops, the soldiers fall in line and continue walking. I was stunned. I think if you spend any real amount of time watching movies, especially modern ones, you know that in general things aren't all that graphic or intense as they used to be. There are exceptions, of course, but rarely do gunshots or razor blades feel as slick and sharp as they once did. The Long Walk makes it clear that violence is not a possibility, it is a guarantee, and that our characters are in very real danger at all times. What follows is a bleak, harrowing tale of determination, self-realization, friendship. It's a blistering experience for not only the characters on screen, but audiences too. The magic of The Long Walk is that nothing is hidden or remains unexplained. You stop walking, you die, and The Long Walk is going to show your death in explicit detail. The rules are simple, but the movie only works if audiences actually understand how things play out for our contestants. A big question I had going into The Long Walk was, how do people eat, how do people sleep, and how do people use the bathroom? All 3 of these questions are answered in excruciating detail, a little bit too much detail if I'm going to be honest. But it's so important that the world feels as real as possible. Characters suffer brutal deaths and injuries ranging from broken ankles to what could essentially be described as death by dysentery. It's gross, it's disgusting, it's depressing, and it's glorious that a major motion picture actually has the guts to, well, show off its guts. Rarely do you get a film so insistent on making its main character suffer. The first example that comes to mind while I'm writing the script is Alien Covenant, a movie that is just so unbelievably bleak and mean-spirited. Prometheus was wild and a weird departure from the Alien franchise for sure, but Ridley Scott went bozo mode with Covenant. I really like this one, and I think it's a top-tier Alien film. That's a topic for another video, but it certainly wasn't afraid to get messy. Neither is The Long Walk. As a whole, I don't think The Long Walk is really doing anything all that special, but it's also not scared to be itself. A movie like this only works if it's brutal, violent, and dangerous, and The Long Walk checks these boxes. You feel absolutely horrible for all these people, these young men who have told themselves money is worth the risk of death. It's an insane thing to do, but aren't we all doing this already? Obviously, going to work in a cubicle every day in your nice big SUV is a little bit different than going on a death march. But we're all trading our time here on Earth for financial security, just in different ways. It's a pretty genius premise, one that manages to touch on wealth inequality, like I said, civil unrest, totalitarian governments, and an individual's role in making a change. Now, The Long Walk would be half the film it is without excellent performances from David Johnson and Cooper Hoffman, though the entire group of men here all hit their marks. There's real actual conversation and banter on display. It doesn't feel like Hollywood screenwriter stuff, but more, we just rolled film on a group of 20 dudes taking the worst test of their lives. It's really sad and depressing, but then, these guys are saying yo mama jokes. When the big moments happen, they hit, but it's these small character moments that really turn The Long Walk from boring young adult slop to a dark, mature, and ultimately rewarding story, one that actually feels like it respected me and my intelligence. It's always great when you go to a movie expecting it to be mid, only to find out it's actually pretty good. The Long Walk falls in the solid 3.5 star category for me on Letterboxd, though I can see myself rounding it up to a 4 as time goes on. I really can't stop thinking about this movie, and I think it's one that is going to be hard to watch, but I would recommend it to pretty much everybody. I may still be walking on, but this film feels like it will continue to linger in my mind for quite some time.